to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynn. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for being here, guys. We're just laughing because we are in Dr. Brooke's new home and we've just spent 40 minutes trying to set this up. But
it's real.
It's real. Yeah, that's the behind the scenes, what it takes to make a podcast.
Yes. Meanwhile, we have very limited time to film a lot of podcasts.
Yes. So
should we tell them what's coming? Why we're filming?
We'll get to that. But
big surprise.
If you're interested in, like I said, the behind the scenes stuff, we get together every quarter.
Yep.
And we film a bunch of episodes. So we go through the calendar. We think about what holidays we're going to hit upon. We could be talking about Christmas in July, right? But that's how we do it. So we're hunkering down today and
24 episodes
more than today for the next 3 days. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot of talking to me.
By the time we're at the end of this, I'm not going to want to see.
We're either going to be still be best friends, or not.
Or we're going to need a major break from each other.
Yeah, I think that's guaranteed. But that's okay.
Anyway, if you're not watching us on YouTube, you have to at least for a moment go and check out these videos because we're very excited about this technology that we've just put together for ourselves.
That's right. It's just two women figuring all of this stuff out, and we're doing okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And by the way, this is off topic. We're going to get to the topic in a second, but I just want to take a moment to say, like, if you are thinking about trying something new and you think you can't do it or you're too old or I'm this or I'm that, you and I have just been self-taught figuring all this tech stuff and production stuff and everything out along the way. And it is possible. Who would have ever thought we'd be producing our own podcast 2 years ago?
Yes. If you wait to think, I'm going to know how to do that or I need to take the class, you'll never get it done.
Yes.
I think that it's more important that you just take a step and figure it out. Give yourself a permission to be clunky along the way because we've certainly done that. Made plenty of mistakes, but we've learned from them. And you figure it out. And that was a big thing for me is realizing that I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. Everything is figure outable.
Yes. Thank you, Marie Forleo.
Yes, right.
That's right. I agree. And you do figure it out along the way. You just have to get started.
That's right. Well, same thing with friendships, which is what we're talking about today.
Good segue.
I know. I'm getting better at this.
You are really getting better at this.
See how we are 24 hours from now.
Yes. That's right. So we're talking about friendships.
Yes.
And we've talked about this on past episodes. So if you want to go back, all of our episodes are on the website and they're also on YouTube. So you can go find them because some of our older episodes were not podcasts, but we did have
They were vlogs. Yeah.
Yes.
So you could watch them mostly on YouTube, right?
Right. But we have talked about friendships quite a bit because we hear from all of you that it's something that so many of us struggle with.
Yeah, I was just messaged yesterday about a woman and she's like, how do you find friends at 50 if you're single and in a new town? So that's kind of a combination there of, a recipe, I guess, for needing new friends. But I think the biggest problem is, and I was thinking about this when I was getting ready to respond to her, is we just don't have a big pool of available friends. So when you went to college, I mean, what an opportunity to meet people, right? It's just everybody was new, but everybody was there to meet people.
Yes.
Even when you go into the workforce when you're younger, if you did that, you have young people, career people the same age looking to make friends at that stage in your life.
That's right.
The kids, you've got the activities, the sports, that brought you together. Well, once the kids move on, we basically have this shrinking pool of available people. And friendships is a numbers game, right? It really is. It's the more people that you meet, the more likely the chance that you're going to make a connection or two.
Yeah.
It's just like dating.
It does sort of happen in phases. When you're little, you make your friends at school. College, you make your friends. But I can specifically remember getting out of college and then grad school, right? And moving with Ken to an area that I'd never lived in Rockville, Maryland. And hitting me in the face, how do we make friends now? You're in your late 20s, almost 30s. He was working. I was just starting to find work. And that was really tricky until we had kids. And then you have kids and it's like that opens up a whole new, because you're going to mommy groups or you find neighbors that have kids. You want to have play dates because you want the kid, right? You're socializing around the kids. And so that opened up a window. And that carried us all the way through, at least for me, and I'm sure you'd say the same, that carries you through even later years in high school, right?
Yes.
But then when the kids graduate or they move on or whatever, now it's like you have the chance to really start to think about, who do I want to spend my time with? You know, not that you're getting rid of friends or you're better than the friends you had, but it's like, what, you know, I think we all have a sense that our time is a little bit limited and we want to make the most even of everything, including our relationships.
Yeah, well, the truth is, and I mean, I'm just speaking from my experience, but the kids, the parents that you are friends with that are, you're brought together because of the kids, if you just separated them, some of those people you might not be friends with just on your own.
Yeah.
The thing that you have in common is the sports team or the traveling or the shared experiences,
Absolutely.
right? So at this age, like you said, time is of the essence. We don't want to waste time with people that we don't have shared interests with, that don't share the same values. And the question is, how do you find them?
Yeah.
We have talked at length about how important values are, and you can have some friends that you like with the kids as parents, or maybe some people at work that you could spend a short period of time with. But the deeper that you go, the more you realize that you vary greatly on core value issues.
Yes.
And that becomes a problem when you're thinking about spending more time with those people, maybe extending it to travel, which many of us want to do that. We want to find people we can travel with, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that first, and then we'll go into some practical ways that you can actually go about meeting new people. So let's talk about the layers of friends, because this was a big aha moment for me.
I think for both of us. I don't know where I fall in strengths. I can't remember where, like, the relatable and that sort of where I fall with needing to relate. Some of us just, people come in and out, but some of us need to go really deep to feel fulfilled, right?
Better one-on-one. You have a close circle of friends that you just feel very comfortable with and you're drawn to. So that's a strength called relator, versus a woo, which is a win others over. They love to go and work a room, you know, those. And so this is a great point too, because there are going to be people that are just really better at meeting new people.
Yeah.
Now, they may not be able to take that friendship and deepen it and extend it, but they can surely create that opportunity. I happen to be married to one of them. So, and you are a woo and Ken are a woo. So
you're surrounded by us.
I know. Thankfully, you guys do that for me, meeting the new people. But so just keep that in mind. There's people that are really good at it. If you're having some social anxiety, which personally, when it comes to meeting new people, I absolutely hate it. Because it's all this small talk, right? You probably aren't going to relate to this, but many of you, I'm hoping, will relate to it. It's just like, can we just get to the stuff already that's important, you know? But no, it's, you gotta get there. It's a dance. You gotta like start with the coffee and then extend to maybe a yoga.
It's a little bit dating. It's a little bit like dating. It's crazy.
And you know, that's like, who wants to go through that again? But it's worth it on the other end.
It's so
solid connections.
Worth it. Absolutely. And I sidetracked us a little bit because we were talking about the layers and how much that meant to us. So
go back.
If we circle it back to that, apologies because I'm all over the place this morning. But yeah, I think that was a huge thing for me because there are certain ways that I view the world that I think like I'm very focused on health and holistic health, right? Faith, like there's just different things that sort of, if I want to just focus in on, I have to meet people that think the exact same as me and all of these things, all of a sudden that pool of people becomes very small.
It's even smaller.
And so you and I have found over the years, and we talked through this, like it's okay to have friends that are maybe you're not going to sit down and connect with on a really deep level, and they may not share your same views of the world, but you have a great time with them.
Right. And I think that was sort of like a point in time, if we want to go back to that COVID issue, you know, that really sort of values came to the surface very fast in that potential in that time. And so that became a place where we were just so inundated with it that we only kind of wanted to be around people that thought the same. And that was a very dangerous way of thinking, to your point, to extend beyond that sort of acute period of time, because we do need other people. We need to be challenged by other ways of thinking. You don't have to change your thought process. Right. You should be growing and you should be at least open to new ideas, right? Or else you're going to just be stagnant. So this going back to these layers, and kind of extending on what you said, it's different types of friends serve different purposes.
Yep.
And we don't need necessarily to, you and I, yes, we love spending time together. We could probably spend 3 weeks together. Don't you agree with our families?
Absolutely.
Easily.
I think we almost have.
Yeah, we pretty close to it. But there are other friends that serve other purposes. So everybody that comes into your life in those different layers, the 3-minute friends, the acquaintances that you talk to, you're going to learn something from them. You're going to grasp some type of human connection from them. And it's important that you don't limit yourself. You can have that expectation, keep that expectation for the sense that a 3-minute friend is never going to possibly be a 3-week friend. Right. And then we have our 3-hour friends, friends you could go over and just have a glass of wine and some charcuterie and hang out and talk with your husbands maybe, but then you leave them and that's good for maybe another couple months until you see each other again. Right. And
or even a couple of weeks. I just think the point there is that you're going to get together, you're going to have a glass of wine or even a cup of tea and just chat, but maybe you're not going deep with that person. Right. You're going to them. And do you know what I mean? Yes.
And I think the better conversation around this, or the big point to make, is that if you have an expectation for every person that you meet, that they're going to be this like lifelong friend, that's going to steer you wrong.
You're selling yourself short.
You're putting an expectation on friendship that it doesn't need to be there. No, there's layers.
I've done that.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, that was a surefire way to get myself on an island where I was miserable because I wasn't connecting with anybody.
And worse yet, then you think back when it doesn't work out with that person or they don't have that same expectation for the friendship, then you're like, well, what's wrong with me?
Right.
You know, you kind of direct that inward or back on you.
Absolutely.
And you're like, what was me?
Yes.
You know?
And I'm going to be like super like raw here and maybe a little too vulnerable because I don't know that I should be sharing this. Well, I don't want to sound like, I don't want to come off sounding like condescending, but honestly, there has been such a large portion of my life from probably not in college, but just after college on, where I was way too judgmental on the friends that I wanted to have and too judgmental on women. Like just the things that I should have just, chalked it up to differences. And instead of seeing like the good and the reasons why to hang out, I'd be like, like one thing goes wrong and it'd be like, not worth it.
Write that person off.
Yeah. Yes. And that's a silly way to live your life because none of us, certainly not me, are perfect.
Yeah.
And if we hold the standard and the bar too high for the friends that we want to make and the connections we want to make, then we very well can get in a situation like I did myself where I was kind of on an island.
Yeah. So you shrink your pool, then you're not making time for connection and you're not even realizing you need it until you're in a situation where your kids are out of the house and now you're starting over. So that's okay. I mean, if you're there, we'll get you out of that. But if you're still with the kids at home and you still have, maybe you're in the town you grew up in, or what have you, the time is now basically to start to foster those friendships because it's much easier to continue to invest in friendships that have been formed than it is to start all new friendships.
Yes.
Unless you're moving to a new town.
And like we just did. And I think that's the key here is that as women in general, can be way too judgmental. That's number one. We have to let go a little bit of that, right? Accept each other for who we are. And number two, when we get into the problem is we've had such a focus on our kids that we were able to do that. We could be just like, let the friendship piece go. Yeah. Or, let it take a back seat, write someone off, whatever. But now circling back, the kids are going and now all of a sudden, well, now who are we connecting with? Yeah.
So I think what I wrote back yesterday, I wrote in my post is that as women, we can not make time for friendship, but we're the first ones to complain that we don't have friends.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the poster child for that.
I've done it. I still do it. And I complain a lot about one of the things that I kind of resist against is that every day feeling kind of the same.
Yeah.
You know, wake up, Groundhog's Day. I've spoken about this before. And I had a very good friend tell me recently, and it was, again, another aha moment where she's like, are you making time to just go see friends? And I'm like, no, because I have you, I have her, my group of friends across the country that are what I would call my 3-week friends. And I was just kind of getting poured into only by them, but they don't live in my town.
Yeah.
So that's where those 3-hour friends, they do come in. It's kind of like that analogy with the, you know, if you want to put all these pebbles into a jar,
yeah.
right? What do you got to do? You got to put all the big ones in first. So those are your 3-week friends. And then you put in the smaller pebbles, and then you can put in the gravel, and then you can fill it up with water, you know, and then you have a full analogy.
You're so good for analogies.
But, no, not that analogy. That's a time, you know, if you tried to put the small ones in first,
yeah,
right?
It's going to take you a lot longer to get to where you need to be.
But the point is they all can come in and fill you up.
Yes. And here's the thing, and you all have probably heard us say this before, but it's worth mentioning again. And I didn't get a chance to tell you this yet because it came up at Andrew's graduation. My son just graduated from high school. You're listening to this later, but right now we're recording in June. And the headmaster did the graduation like kickoff speech or whatever, and he was saying that, you know, the most important thing that you are going to have in your life, seniors, as you graduate, and I want you to always remember it, is something different that anyone's going to tell you, because it's not your education. It's not the career that you choose. It's not the money that you have or the things that you buy. The number one thing that you need in your life and you need to foster is relationships.
That's true. Look at the Harvard
study. And he cited that study.
Yep.
And he said, and in fact, there's research out of Harvard that we've cited and we've talked about in posts. But it was so cool to sit there and hear. I was so happy to be at a school where he was talking about this and telling the kids this and emphasizing that none of that other stuff when it comes to happiness and even longevity matters. The most important thing is the relationships we build. Right. So now more than ever, life after kids, what we're talking about in this community, is all about how do we live a more fulfilling and meaningful and happy life. We have to have good friends and good connections.
Okay, so let's get down to the practical side.
Great.
Because if you're listening and you're nodding along and you're like, I'm right there with you, I'm ready to get out there, the first news that you need to accept is that if it is to be, it is up to me. So...
Did you make that up?
No.
Okay.
I take credit for nothing original. I can pull things up at times when they're useful. So if it is to be, it is up to you. And with women, we just explained what happens with it. So don't take it personally. Don't feel like, well, I'm always the one that has to text her. These are women that need to probably be just kind of herded along to get them together, because women do enjoy it when we get out there. It's just the overcoming that inertia of getting them there. That's the hardest part. Right? And we just did a full podcast episode on planning a girls' night out and a girls' trip, I think. We talked about that. And inside of that, we had some really practical tips. If you have friends in your town, but you're just more along the lines of like, nobody's getting together, nobody's doing anything, that's the podcast you want to go to and get some ideas from that.
Yep.
So back to making new friends, though. Again, it's a numbers game. So you've got to get yourself out in front of a lot of people.
Agreed.
This means joining a class. There's nothing groundbreaking here, but these are all ideas for you to revisit and see. And if you say, I've tried that, try it again. Is the whole point, right? So join a class, take a class, join a group.
Yeah.
Join a country club if that's available to you.
Yeah.
Or the Y.
We talked about that before.
I've had a few women, and I love this, commenting recently about it sounds like some sort of senior center where they go and do some sort of line dancing. So there are clubs and, it's the Elks Club or whatever it is. There's a place for you to go where there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Go there.
My mother and her friends, I talk about them all the time, but they do line dancing. And they've been doing it for years. And she was just here for the weekend for Angie's graduation. And she was saying, some of these women that I met at line dancing, there's this country singer that's coming to town. And they all got tickets. There's a group of like 10 of them going. And all women that, you know, because my mom has her friends that she's known from when we grew up. And because she stayed in the town and like raised us where they lived. So they knew friends even back from high school. But these are all new women that she met. Good. They share a similar interest, and they like to have fun. They like to dance. They share a similar interest in music, and it's branched out to now they're going to concerts together. So to your point, there's so many different avenues, you know, to find that way.
That's proof that it can be done.
Absolutely.
Your mom, and it is, I get it. It's intimidating. And sometimes when you move to a town, you've got groups of friends that are already set up, and it's going to be pretty hard to penetrate that. But usually with that, you've got your little groups, but there are times when the, you know, kind of multiple groups will come together, and that can be something that you can help organize.
Absolutely.
And a great place to start for that would be in your neighborhood. So low hanging fruit, if you're new in a town, it's summer right now, plan a neighborhood get together, like a potluck, or, you know, bring your own beverage, whatever it is, have it on your block, a block party, basically.
Absolutely.
You could recruit a few people to come together and do that. We do that a lot in the Midwest. I don't know, maybe that's not a thing out here, but if it's not, start it. Like, that's just it. People do love to do new things. And the first time you do it, if there's 4 people there, there's 4 people there.
Yeah.
Do it again. Guaranteed. If you had a good time and you made it fun, there will be double or more, you know, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's an important point, because at least for me, I can get lost in the like last night I was supposed to go to a graduation party and just things got ahead of me. I'm like, oh, it's during the week, it's this, it's that. I make these excuses and I don't push myself to go do the thing or go interact. And then I'm whining about why don't I have anything to do?
Yeah.
So you can't have it both ways. No. You do have to put yourself out there. And by the way, we just moved to a new town and we had 2 of our neighbors come together, couples, right? So there was 4 of them. And they brought a beautiful little vase of flowers and just like introduced themselves. We all got on a text string together.
So nice.
You know, like told us a little bit about themselves, welcomed us. And we're not even really in the neighborhood. So I mean, kind of, but not really. But those types of things, like if somebody new moves into your neighborhood, don't hesitate to reach out. I actually think that next year, my word for the year, I want it to be hospitality. Mm-hmm. I've been thinking a lot about this because I need to be more intentional. Like, we have the space for it, and I need to be more intentional about building relationships because I don't. It always, for me, goes to the back burner because I'm so just busy doing other things.
Same, and I know that so many of you sitting out there listening to this, it's the point that we made, which is like, you get busy, you're doing the things, but then Friday night comes along and you're like, oh, why don't we have plans? Mm-hmm. You know? So it's where energy goes, focus goes, right? Yes. So if you put some energy into it, you're going to get some results, and it's just that consistency over time and how much you're willing to invest for it. And then when it is coming down to it about hospitality, if you're that kind of person that, like, you know, it has to be perfect or go through a lot of hurdles to get people in, and you got to do the things, and people don't actually enjoy that. Like, a great party, all you need is good music, a few things to nibble on, you know, maybe you want to pour some nice wine or whatever it is, or great tea, whatever, if you're mocktails. But people like a relaxed host. So, you know, it doesn't have to, we get into this thing where resist that, I guess. Go back to what it used to be back in the day when our parents got together, right? I just remember it was all about the connection and the quality.
Yeah.
And we never got to tell you about the Harvard study. You might know everything about it, but for those of you that missed that, it was the longest running study done. It was like spanned over 80 years almost, and it was like 700 of the original participants and then like 1,200 of their family members, and it followed like all of them along their lives to see what the factors were that created happiness. And they found that above a certain threshold, so once your basic needs are met, after that point, increasing money has no bearing on your happiness. And they found what things didn't, right? So stuff and things, not so much. But the one thing that was enduring, the one thing that was common and it rose to the top as the greatest predictor, I guess, of happiness was the quality of the connections.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so
It is so important. And to your point about it doesn't all have to be, because I can get lost in that shuffle too of like, oh, the house isn't together and it's just messy and I don't have the right food, whatever it is. So with Andrew's graduation, we went out to a nice lunch that day. And then he wanted to have some friends over. Anthony had a few friends over that night to celebrate. And we just moved into the house. So you're here now and it's even more put together than it was. It's crazy. It was last minute. But one of Andrew's friends, his best friend, actually, we know the parents, not super well, but we know them. They're super nice people. And I was like, at lunch, I was like, Andrew, let's tell them to come over tonight. And I would never normally do that just because we just moved and there's stuff everywhere. And literally, we sat outside on the porch with didn't even have cushions on, nothing. They brought drinks, we had drinks, and I had I think a bowl of potato chips and a bucket of cashews from Target. And when I tell you that we had a blast, we were there for several hours. We had some music going. We just it doesn't have to be
a big deal.
It doesn't have to be a big deal. And we had such a nice time with them.
That's so great.
And I could have totally gone the opposite direction and been like, oh, we were out all day and we had graduation and we had lunch. And
you're glad you did it, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So
what other tips do you have?
Well, yeah, so as far as friendships, even if you're not in a new town, as that comment came in, maybe you're in that town and you're thinking, well, I still don't have any friends.
Yeah.
I've been living here. So you can't always see the forest for the trees or through the trees, whatever that statement is.
Yeah.
But there's probably people in your life that would make great connections for you. So what I want you to do is take out some pen and paper and make a couple of lists. So you can make your 3-minute friend list, your 3-hour friend list, your 3-day list, whatever. But pick the people that you're interested in getting to know more. And when I did this, I was so surprised at...
Did you do this?
I have done this recently after Camilla and I spoke about it, because I was on the phone again complaining about, Groundhog's Day. And she's like, I hear you. And the thing that's solved it for me is just going out for coffee here, building in some connection, right?
Yes,
because that's
so
what makes you feel like you're living. It's not just all the doing and the checking off and the taking care of the kids and being there for them. So make your lists, because there are people in your life, and you probably know them because a year ago when you saw them last, you're like, I need to get together with that person, and you never did. So then you're going to make your list and you're going to give yourself a goal. That's how I work. If you're much more organic than that, then just, put it in mind to text that person and ask them for a coffee. Have them over for a drink.
Yes.
Just put yourself out there. It's uncomfortable. The invitations aren't necessarily going to start flooding in until you put some effort forward. And that is bad news, I know, to many people. There's no magic, but effort put in usually results in a good outcome.
Right. And also, another thing, I love that. I think that's a great advice from Camilla. And great that you took it and ran with it. It's so true. The relationships and connections do break up the monotony or the doldrums or whatever it is. And even when you don't feel like you want to do it, you sometimes have to act the way you want to feel. And you can pull yourself out of it if you're feeling a little down. Yeah. It's so important.
If you get anything from this conversation today, just that it is worth the effort. It really is. And even if you're in a place where your kids are moved out and you just feel very alone, I love this quote. It's very true. The world is full of lonely people who are afraid to make the first move. So somebody in your town, someone you know more than likely, sitting or feeling the same way that you are. You just need to put some steps forward to find them so that you guys can start living some life after kids together.
Right. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up, we have our membership group. Yes. And we were on a live call the other day. And one of the women there was mentioning, so we were breaking down the quiz. The 4 different types of moms in our quiz. If you haven't taken it yet, you need to. It's the What's Your Purpose quiz. And anyway, she was saying that she was a remarkable relator. We were talking to her about how if you're a remarkable relator, relationships are like the way you view the world. You're great at making connections. You're great at bringing people together. And she was then seeing that through the lens of she was always feeling bad because she felt like she was the one reaching out to connect with people and texting them, but she wasn't getting it back. And what we had said to her was, you, first of all, women need you. They need you in your space. And it's not because they don't want to be involved or they don't hold you in high regard. It's just that they're not a relator like you are. Like, if you're listening and you are somebody that you've taken the quiz and you're a remarkable relator, definitely use those skills and get the women together because we need you to do it. Because otherwise, a lot of us, and it's not, if you're not getting the text back, right? If you feel like you're the one that's always reaching out or asking how it's going or trying to plan something, it might just be because that's the way you're wired. And that's okay, because we're not all wired the same. But what we need to do is figure out and understand how we're wired and use those skills to help everyone around us.
Yes. And everybody can do a little better at it, probably. In your space as women, like we said, admittedly, we're not always the best at this. But if you are that remarkable relator, that's your special talent. And, you can be an example for others. And, you will be that glue that brings people together.
Right.
And if you're not, find a remarkable relator because they make great friends.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And one other thing, I don't know if do you have any other tips? Nope. So one other thing I want to add to that list, because you mentioned going to classes or joining a group, just different practical tips. Another thing is that you might never guess, but this was like kind of interesting and new to me. My husband had been talking, and then this goes back maybe 2 years, but there was a guy that he knows through work, right? They work in the same space. And they enjoy each other's company. So they're like, oh, it was the holiday. Why don't we get together and let's bring the wives to dinner? And a lot of times in those situations, I'm like, okay, let's, whatever, let's see how this goes. Or maybe some of you that are listening, I don't know if you've been there, but are like, because it's not very often that if
there's a
match. Yeah, there's a match. But anyway, we went to dinner and I never met his wife before and we hit it off. It turns out like we share so many, this is a case where like so many values and so many interests. And now that we've moved, we're in the same town and we both know it's like weird how friendships could sort of be like love at first sight. Is that weird? But like sometimes when you just know that there's a connection. And so anyway, it's she and I now, to her credit, has been reaching out to me like, I know you just moved, but let's get together. When can we have coffee? Like, I think we both know that it's hard to find somebody that you connect with that well on so many levels. So my point is,
grab onto it.
If you find it, grab onto it. And, sometimes you just, when you know. And B, sometimes those women show up in the most unlikely of places. So don't rule things out. This, again, we've been talking, this is the overarching theme, I think, is like, put yourself out there, step out of the comfort zone, and don't rule those things out. Don't rule out opportunities because you never know where you're going to meet someone. And that could be going to join your husband and somebody that he works with and their spouse for dinner. That could be joining a class. That could be just being out at the grocery store and you just never know. Like, you never know if you're willing to put yourself out there.
Yeah, and if you see the world as an opportunity to meet new people, then that's what's going to happen. So if you see it as a place that's like closed off to you or there's not a lot of opportunity, that's what you'll find. Your brain has a way of just we've talked about that before, cognitive dissonance, right? For whatever you think, your brain will make that happen, make that a reality for you. So if you go into the grocery store thinking that there's possibilities or wherever, just grocery store as an example, then you're more likely to experience those connections just in random places. Yeah.
And I think the other one last point to make is that you're not the only one who's feeling this way. So if you think you are, don't feel bad about yourself and don't be nervous about putting yourself out there because the majority of women in our community are all saying in this phase of life, one of the hardest things is making friends and they want new friends. So when we all know that about each other, it automatically makes it easier for us to put ourselves out there or to send a text or say, let's go grab coffee, because likely the chances are the woman on the other end of that text or phone call or whatever it is feeling the same way as you, and they're going to be more than happy. Like this woman that I just mentioned that reached out to me, I am over the moon happy that she's reached out to me and wants to get together for coffee, because I'm searching for that too. We all are.
Yeah, that's great. Great place to finish this up.
Yep. So ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We appreciate your feedback. Make sure that you're reaching out to us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Please DM us if there's anything in particular that you want to hear about or you want to give us feedback. Definitely rate and review and share the podcast with your friends and people that you know. If you are searching for friendship, as most of us are, think about joining the Life After Kids membership community. That's a great place to meet people.
Come on over. It's a great place to ask your questions and to just develop these relationships with people all across the world, which is really cool.
Right.
And maybe in your own hometown.
Yeah, you never know. But by the way, don't discount technology and the ability to meet people all over. They don't have to be in your hometown. So anyway, make sure you're following us, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Ladies, have an awesome day.
Hugs to you, Mama.